Astro Bot is probably one of the most fun games I have played in a long time. You probably have heard that a lot already, but it's true. That's not to say that other games I played this year weren't fun and I didn't enjoy them or have a good time, but wow. This is probably going to be one of those games where it instantly will transport you back to your childhood. If you are one of those people that somehow sees gaming as boring these days, or you find yourself being burnt out, I am almost certain that this will get you right back on track. And what I mean by that is that while I disagree that video games just aren't fun anymore, because I do truly believe that there is a game for everyone out there, if there are just no games that are doing it for you right now, it probably means that you just need a break from video games altogether and you are burnt out. However, this game in particular, I think is going to be the one that draws you back in. Because most people, when they argue this, it's usually because they're just tired of the modern AAA landscape. They just kind of want to go back to those classic PS2 style games where games were always just pure fun. And Astro Bot is exactly that. It feels like a PlayStation 2 era game that has been modernized with just prettier, flashier graphics made for this current gen. And obviously, I don't mean that it feels that way or plays that way from a control standpoint, because the controls are very modern. However, it's very much the type of game where it's just straight up fun, where you go from level to level, doing a bit of a collectathon, which is exactly what these kinds of games are. Now, that's not to say that Astro Bot is the only one of its kind in recent years. However, it is amongst the best that there is. Yes, this game will rival some great Nintendo games. It will rival even that of Super Mario Galaxy or Super Mario Odyssey. It is really up there as far as modern platformers go. Now, on the surface, you might think that this is a simple platformer, but I assure you, it is absolutely not at some points. For the main story, it will be simple enough for you to get through, and I don't think most people will have an issue beating it. However, if you are doing a completionist run like I did, you are likely going to struggle quite a bit. So do not underestimate the difficulty in this game, because it is probably some of the hardest platforming I have done in a long time, or maybe even ever. Now, each one of the main levels usually offers something new. There is sometimes a mechanic that they introduce in a level, only for them to throw it away in the next and never use it again, just so that it doesn't start feeling repetitive. There's always something fresh, some new added mechanic to that particular level, and it just definitely never feels like it gets old. Though there are times when some of those mechanics do make a return, especially in some of those optional levels, the secret levels, but that should be expected. There's only so many different things that you can do with these different mechanics. But it is interesting how they decided to make sure that it never got boring and never went dull. In every level, you will need to save a certain number of bots and find a certain number of puzzle pieces. It's not necessary to find them all, but you do need a certain number of bots to progress through the main story. And I mean, sections of the game will literally be closed off to you until you get that required amount, whether that be the boss battle for that galaxy, or gaining access to the galaxy from a section in the crash site that cannot be reached without the help of your fellow bots. Though having more bots also means finding other missing ones, or collecting more coins, or finding more puzzle pieces, for example. The puzzle pieces are necessary as well, because completing a full puzzle unlocks these 4 hub areas that are unavailable to you for the majority of the game. You have the dual speeder garage, where you can change the paint color of your DualSense speeder that you can use to fly around in this game, the changing room, where you gain access to all the costumes you find, Safari Park, where you unlock photo mode, and the Gacha Lab, which is this little gacha game that uses your coins to unlock costumes, speeder paint, or little props and set pieces for your special bots. After clearing each one of the main galaxies, each one corresponding to one of the 4 buttons, you find one of the ship parts that you will need to repair your ship. And the repairing is done by these robot arms through this first-person mode, where you have to actively place each piece as if you're repairing it yourself. It's very involved, and I love that. Speaking of bosses, it's very much the traditional platforming type of boss fight, where they have a pattern of attacks that you can quickly notice. During the first attempt, it might be slightly daunting, but once you know the pattern and you get that rhythm flowing, it becomes somewhat of a cakewalk. In fact, these types of levels are actually often easier than some of the other levels, because some of them can be a real nightmare. Like, even the final boss doesn't compare. He is easy in comparison. Aside from collecting all the bots and the puzzle pieces from each level, which you can pretty easily track when you are looking through the menu, you will notice this little swirl over here. That little swirl means it's a lost galaxy, which is another section of the main space map that unlocks these secret levels. Also, in the other galaxies, if you wait around long enough, you will find some interesting UI elements on the screen, with little aliens moving around, carrying a meteor that you have to catch, or you might find one of these little stars off to the side, and you can actually play around with that, unlocking some more secret levels. And it's really in these types of levels where you're really put to the test. A lot of these levels require a lot of precision. For these, you will have to go through the entire level making sure that each movement and each little thing that you do is precise. Otherwise, you may have to start all the way from the beginning of that level. You won't be able to complete the level just by going from checkpoint to checkpoint like in the main story levels, because these types of levels actually lack those checkpoints and they actually make you restart from the beginning even if you are just inches away from the end, and it can be incredibly frustrating. Like this one level where you're surrounded by lava and all you got is your trusty little rubber ducky. You go through and you squeeze the rubber ducky so that it cools the area and is safe enough to walk over. Sounds simple enough, right? Not when you factor in these rotating cylinders spitting lines of fire, while there's also a frog-like creature that is firing little rockets at you. And I cannot tell you how frustrating this level was. I think I would say it's probably the most difficult level of the entire game. Even more so than the secret Great Master Challenge level in the post-game, which was challenging in its own way given its length. And I'm just as surprised as you are as to how I was even able to eventually beat it. But I had spent at least a solid 20 minutes just sitting there, retrying over and over, pulling my hair out. And yeah, it was absolutely brutal. I mean, I'm pretty convinced this was our punishment for Concord.
Looks like you're going to Shadow Realm, Jimbo.
Notice how I haven't even mentioned how great this game was because it's a PlayStation IP. The game is simply great on its own. However, it does add to it. Seeing all these different cameos and all these different characters from all the various IPs is a fun little bonus treat. And honestly, some of these characters are actually really obscure. More obscure than I would have expected. And there are actually some that appear that you wouldn't expect considering that they aren't actually PlayStation IP. A lot of them aren't even exclusive, or were exclusive at one point, but no longer are. But nonetheless, they are here and I think it's really cool to see them. Like, there are some real deep cuts here that even I wasn't familiar with. And so some of these characters, especially the ones that you are familiar with, seeing them and being able to save them at the end of one of these levels is honestly one of the things that will keep you going and is just super rewarding. You want to be able to save all of those bots. You want the Dragon of Dojima by your side. You want Jill. You want Chris. You want Leon and Claire. But again, the entire experience is fun as it is even without the fan service or the nostalgia bait. I would still wholeheartedly recommend this game either way, but it's a welcome addition and it makes it more fun knowing that some of your favorite IP not only have their characters cameo, but also have full levels dedicated to them, whether they be from Uncharted or Horizon or God of War or Loco Roco. To put into perspective just how much I enjoyed this game, this is the very first game that I actually platinumed. I don't think there has been a single other game in my life that I've completed 100%. There are tons of games that I've beaten, obviously, but never to its full completion. And the reason for that is mostly that I like to play through the main story, and then I just eventually get too lazy to come back and finish it, and finish the rest to do the little side things and whatever. And even if I enjoy it, even if I love the game, I typically don't do it because primarily I'm always looking for that next thing. That next game. I move from game to game, especially now being a reviewer. That is what I do. I like to see what else is out there and experience something new, especially if the last game is hours and hours and hours. But in Astro Bot, it was different. I actually wanted to do the whole thing. I wanted to hunt every single trophy. I wanted to make sure that everything was completed. And I had no intention of doing that going in, by the way. In fact, for a while, even though I was hyped for the game, I actually considered not buying it and waiting for a sale at first, because there are so many games I want and only so much money that I can spend at a time. However, I decided to bite the bullet and just see what it had to offer, and I was super surprised by it. Initially, I thought this game was just going to be more of what Astro's Playroom did, and I loved Astro's Playroom. I thought it was fun. It was a nice little tech demo for the PS5, but I thought it couldn't really be expanded on. It could have just been more of the same for longer, and I would have been fine with that. I would have enjoyed it either way. But that's not what this is. This is a lot more. There is a lot more in this package, and the price tag is definitely warranted, especially when you put it next to some other games that are in this echelon. Nintendo to be more specific. Like, if you are okay with dishing out full price or nearly full price for those types of games, then you will absolutely have an easy time justifying the price of this game. At the time of writing, it currently sits at a 94 on Metacritic, and for good reason. But there are a number of outlets giving this a straight up 10. But I will go against the grain here a bit. Is the game perfect? Yes and no. As a platformer itself, I might actually agree with that assessment, but as a game as a whole, no. But it might be somewhat close, and I can definitely see this being on some people's Game of the Year list. Though there are minor caveats to discuss. I was surprised to see that this game doesn't actually have a whole lot of options. Not that it needs a lot, but the menus seem very bare bones. Beyond the map, when you get to the actual pause menu, it seems to be quite lacking. The only real options here are the camera controls, limited accessibility options, and the ability to adjust the brightness of the HDR on your TV. And that is about it. There aren't any options to tweak any graphical settings, to toggle it between fidelity and performance. Though, to be fair, it is optimized so well, it doesn't need it. But there are no audio settings or anything else that might have been useful. Again, none of it is necessary, but it would have been nice to have these options available at our disposal. There are no difficulty settings, which understandably so. I don't think this needs to have different difficulty settings, especially because most of the difficulty would come from the actual platforming, and that would change the very fundamental aspects of its level design. But one thing that you will come to notice that does become somewhat of an issue is that it actually lacks the ability to manually save the game. The game does have an autosave feature, and for the most part it works, but lacking this feature can actually add to the game's own detriment, which I will mention more of in a moment. For most people, this game will run flawlessly. I honestly mean it. It's surprising how well optimized it is for a game that really seems to be pushing the limits of what a PS5 is capable of. And during my playthrough, I had no frame drops, no stutter, no lag, not even any pop-in. Absolutely nothing. It was always smooth and responsive, and it's quite impressive how well made this game is with a team of only about 65 people, especially when you compare it to so many other games with hundreds and hundreds of devs and how poorly optimized they are. However, after beating the main story, I still had a few knots to tie up to reach platinum. So I went into the PS5 menu to track the trophies I had left when suddenly the entire console started slowly becoming unresponsive and ultimately freezing entirely, to which I reset it, only to find that I had lost about 2 hours of my save, even though it was already saved, sending me back to before the last main mission. It was quite annoying having to repeat some of those more difficult levels again, but I managed to get through it and see it through even with a second crash. I bring this up because apparently a lot of other people have been experiencing issues of deleted saves in this game too. So I'm lucky it was only 2 hours when other people have reported that they've lost 5 or 6 or even more. Which begs the question as to why save options are so limited. Had there been the ability to save, these crashes wouldn't have been a big deal. But now they are, and I hope it's something that Team Asobi looks into and provides an update for, because it can easily put some people off from wanting to continue playing it if they've already poured hours and hours into it. That isn't to say that there isn't a temporary solution, which is what I'd recommend if you're doing a completionist run. Every so often, make sure you exit to the menu to better ensure it's saved. I'm not sure if it's 100% fail-proof, but in my experience and others, it's helped. Astro Bot is an absolute gem in the world of platformers. It strikes the perfect balance between nostalgia and modern gaming sensibilities, making it must-play for anyone looking to rekindle their love for the genre, or even just gaming in general. Its charm, creativity, and sheer fun are undeniable, and it offers plenty of challenges for both casual players and completionists alike. While it does have some quirks, like the lack of manual saving and a few bare-bones menu options, these are minor in comparison to the joy that this game brings. Astro Bot is more than just a platformer. It's a celebration, and not just a celebration of the last 30 years, but a celebration for the joy of gaming, and a call back to simpler times, while also showcasing the potential of current-gen hardware.